So it begins with a C. Oops. All right. Sorry. I have eggs, water, oil, instant yeast, salt, and some bread flour.
So it's measured out, right?
Yep. It's all measured out, all weighed out properly. So I'm mise en place. Now I'm going to mix. So the water for this is cool. There's a reason for this. A lot of people say, oh, you've read all these books that call for warm water, right? Not ideal in most circumstances, because warm water could actually will make your dough go faster, which isn't always a good thing. The longer a dough can ferment, the better its flavor. So we're going to add some cool water to this in order so that it slows down the fermentation, which is good.
Is it good to have warm water with maybe when you're making pizza dough or some kind of rolls other than bread?
There's actually, this is getting kind of complex, so I don't want to confuse you too much, but there's actually a method for figuring out your water temperature, where you actually take your room temperature plus your ingredient temperature, your flour temp, and your mixer friction. As the mixer mixes, it increases the temperature of the dough. About 20 degrees, believe it or not. It's quite a bit. So you take those numbers and you add them together. And then you decide what temperature you want your dough to ferment. 80 degrees tends to be the most common. You multiply that by 3, you take those other numbers that are added together, and subtract it from your desired fermentation, you get what temperature your water should be.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not bad. No, but you asked, so I'm throwing it in there. That's how you would do it. So it depends on how fast you want your dough to ferment. If you want it to go a bit faster, you use warmer water.
Regardless of what kind of bread you make. That's what I'm trying to say. If I'm making pizza dough, and I need that to rise faster than I'm making some kind of cornbread, you know what I mean? Would I use a different temperature of water?
You could, or you could use a higher quantity of yeast. I would suggest a slightly warmer water to a point, because yeast doesn't like it too warm. Above 150 degrees, your yeast cells will begin to denature. 140, they're dead. Beware. So be careful of too hot of water. So slightly warmer, maybe like around 80 degrees, not a problem. You could. It will warm it up and go faster. I wouldn't do more yeast because that will make it taste yeasty. It's not desirable. Warm water might do the same thing, but not as significantly as more yeast. So it depends on what you're making. I personally retard my pizza dough overnight. But that's me. So it depends on what you're doing. So it's totally personal, in other words. Personal preference rather than a written in stone, you know. When it comes to production and you're really organizing yourself, then it matters. So anyway, do you have questions?
Yes, Chef, I just wanted to get up there and check out that dry yeast before you get to it.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about yeast in more depth. This is what's known as instant yeast. It's very, very fine grained. If you all want to pass it around, you're more than welcome to and take a look at it. It's very, very fine grained. There's two different types of dry yeast. One is instant, which is what I personally like to use. There's also what's known as active dry, which is kind of little pellets.
They're
Much bigger.
poppy seeds?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're a little bit bigger than this. Well, the thing about that is you have to rehydrate it before you use it. That's the cause of all the problems with using hot water and baking. Is because they call for you to rehydrate it in 105 to 110 degree water.
Right.
Well, the problem is they don't tell you it should only be 4 times your weight of water that you should rehydrate it in, not the whole quantity of water in your recipe.
True.
So if you're using an ounce of active dry yeast, you should only rehydrate in 4 ounces of your water. Well, your recipe's going to have more than 4 ounces of water. It might have 32 ounces of water. So the rest of your water should be cool to neutralize it so your dough won't go too quickly.
Okay. When are we going to get into the talking about the yeast? I know it's
Soon.
on the syllabus.
Very soon. Yeah, like this later this week or next week. I believe it's this week.
Got to have that info here.
Oh no, yeast is a totally different ballgame because it's a living creature.
Yeah.
It's related to mushrooms. It's related more to mushrooms than anything else. But anyway, I digress. Back, stay on target. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna put my eggs and egg yolks. I have them mixed together. I'm gonna put that in first. I always like to do my liquid first Mostly so it doesn't get stuck, the dry ingredients don't get stuck in the bottom of the bowl, which tends to happen with these mixers.
Eggs and water, you said?
Eggs, water, and oil. So my liquid all goes in first.
Alright.
Then I'm going to put in my flour, followed by my salt on one side and my yeast on the other. Instant yeast actually goes best in with your dry, so I always tend to put it on top of the flour. But quite honestly, you could just dump everything in there and life would be good. I didn't have to break up my eggs or anything. The mixer's going to do that for me.
Man, these yeast back.
And then I'm going to put my yeast on the other side of the salt, the opposite side of the bowl so it doesn't come in contact with it. Put on my dough hook, roll it up, and I'm going to give this, to begin with, 2 minutes on speed 1. It's not going to go, it's not going to. Why I'm doing it this way is because it takes about 2 minutes for the dough to come together. Once the dough comes together, I'm going to check it for consistency. I'm going to see how it looks. Because early in the stages of the mixing process, if you need to add anything additionally to the dough, more water or more flour, that is the time to do it. Here's the thing with adding other ingredients like that. I always rather add water to a dough than add flour to a dough. Because the flour in here is already starting to hydrate and develop, right?
Yep.
If I start adding flour later into the mix, what do you think it's going to happen?
It's gonna be a different.
Yeah, it's going to be a different consistency. It's going to be a different place in the whole scheme of things. Water can be added at any time during the mix, at any time at all. So if you look at it, it's kind of, I'm not sure if you can see it, let me move this back again. You kind of see, it's a little scraggly looking right now, so it needs to go longer.
No, I can't see.
I'll bring you all up here, don't worry. I'm going to tilt it, I'm going to rotate the whole kit caboodle.
Almost. Right now.
A little bit more.
Okay, a lot more.
There we go. Now remember what I said about this flour? This flour recently has been absorbing a lot of moisture, so I'm probably going to have to add some more water to this dough.
That's too thick.
So I'm ready, if I need to. I'll show you how, because we're actually going to get in there and feel it. Don't be shy, come on up.